The largest, I'd say, correlation to your level of satisfaction is the people who you do your work with every single day. So let's talk about why this is. The culprit. On surface, it makes sense. It really makes sense. But yet we don't see it so obviously from a business perspective. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So when you first get in the business, let's face it, you're scared. You're freaked out. You have to survive. You have a lion on your ass that's chasing you, and you've got to run hard. Everything is new to you. You're a sponge with mentors, leaders. You're taking notes. You're listening to anything, and you're trying to figure stuff out, because if you don't, you fail. And if you fail, that's ugly. And so therefore, we're constantly making changes every single day, every single hour in our first few months of the business, right? But then as time goes by, we begin to figure it out. And we begin to think and experience that when we do certain things a certain way, we're able to get a fairly predictable result. And so we're therefore much more adverse to change. Let me do this. Let me give you an example. Even if you're not a golfer, I think you can relate to this story. But it happens in golf. It happens in personal life. It happens in a number of different aspects. I'm going to bring it into more focus in business, but I'm super passionate about golf. I've been playing for a long time. And I think I've had 4 pretty good friends over the course of the last 30 years that I've introduced the game of golf to, that never played in their youth. Didn't even start playing until they're in their maybe late 20s. But they caught the bug, right? They started playing and they just really fell in love with it. But they're really bad. I mean, they're really bad. And if you know anything about handicaps, I mean, none of them are even a 36 handicap. Like the ball goes sideways, like they suck, right? And so they first start playing the game of golf, but they catch the bug and they start working on it. Because why? Because it's embarrassing. Who wants to go out and play golf if you can't hit the ball 30 feet, right? And so they want to learn it. They want to get good at it. They want to get to the point that they enjoy it. So they put a lot of time and effort into it. And sure, that you can bet is that they get pretty good. After maybe, 3, 4, 5 years, they get down to 12 or a 10 or a 13 handicap. But in all 4 of those relationships I have, they did that. Between about a 10 and a 13 or 14, and all 4 of them, they were at that 10 or 13 or 14 like 25 years ago. And guess where they are today? They're at 10 or 13 or 14. And so they had this massive ramp of improvement when they first started the game, and then it got to a point where it was good enough, right? And you know what? I'm the same way. I've been playing golf for 40 some years, and for the last 30, I'm like a 6 or a 7 or an 8, and it doesn't change. Why is that? Because I haven't been willing to put the effort into changing, and the pain of being a 6 or 7 or 8 is not greater than the pain and the commitment of what it would take to change. And so therefore, I haven't done it. I'd like to on the surface. I'd call it wishful thinking. I'd love to be a 1 or a 2 or even better, a scratch. But the reality is it's just not the physical part. That's the part that's probably obvious to most people, but it's the mental part too. And trust me, I don't do it consciously. I don't go to a golf course on the very first hole and say, you know what, I'm an 8, so I can't shoot a 70. I can't do that. I don't do that. But when I stand over the ball, my mental mindset expects certain outcomes to happen. And the behavioral patterns that I've had for the last 30 years have proven that to be right, because the reality is we are all perfectly mentally aligned to get the results that we're getting. And most of which, you got it, is subconscious. It's not conscious in nature for us to think about it. But my body has experienced the game of golf a certain way for 30 years. My brain knows it, and my mind leads and my body follows 100% of the time. So that's how you get that analogy in golf, and it's the same thing in business. We work really hard in the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then it just becomes good enough. So I would say that that's really what it's all about. And, good enough is not so obvious to some people because we create this sense that I've referred to as our familiar. And it's not all at surface exciting. Nobody would consciously say, yep, that's my familiar and I love it and I'm proud of it. Familiar could be the fact that because you've been in this business for 10 years and it's been a grind, your familiar is that the business is supposed to be a grind. That's all you know. You don't wake up every day and have the expectations to have an abundant amount of cash flow, to have difficulties figuring out where you're going to put all your money, right? To be able to have phenomenal work-life balance, to be able to have intriguing, fascinating, intellectually stimulating, emotionally engaging conversations with your clients. You don't expect that because that's not what you've experienced. And so your familiar just keeps on repeating itself. The business to you is supposed to be somewhat painful. It's supposed to be a grind because that's all you know. Now, the real deal here, though, is what we've got to figure out is if you agree with me, if you buy into the fact that if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always gotten, and you don't like it and you really want to change, that's the purpose of this Jim's Take. Because for me, just to tell you that the facts are the facts, what good does that do, right? So how do we get out of it, Jim? What do we do? Here's what I want to tell you. I have coached a number of people to do, and I have seen it work in big ways. I would like to start by saying that you first and foremost have to really have desire, all right? And number two is you have to believe it's possible. But I'm not going to start there. Because every book you've ever read, every motivational speaker you've ever listened to has told you that, right? So we all know that we got to first trick our mind that it's possible, and we got to really want it. We got to get in tune with our purpose. We got to get in tune with our desire. We got to write it down. We got to read it every day, right? You hear that over and over and over and over again. And those, I'm certain, are extraordinarily true, but the people I work with, that's not good enough. So I think there has to be more practical things. But here's the mindset I want to get you in. Because, by the way, the reason those first two things don't work for a lot of people is because they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get their mind to believe it's possible. And so what happens for most people is the mental muscle of self-confidence only gets stronger through small successes. So they have to create their environment to start layering one success on another. And all of a sudden, like 3 months down the road, they can see more possibilities than they saw 3 months ago. And 9 months later, and you see where I'm going. So I think it's some more practical steps that allow you to experience success and that blow up the old norm. And then they begin to take what right now you might think is impossible, and then move it to possible, and then move it to probable.